In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of misconceptions you'd want to avoid and to basically be aware of going into a job interview. First misconception here: applying and preparing for a job interview with a FANG or pretty much any high-performing company is a one-off experience. Okay, so in reality, this will often happen more than once in your career, even if you fail it, and especially if you pass it. Okay, because if you pass your interview and get into a job with a FANG, then you can be sure you'll have subsequent interviews for other roles with high-performing companies, because it's no secret that it's easier to pass those interviews with a more reputable CV. Okay, now why is it important to keep in mind that interviewing isn't a one-off experience? This is simply because the investment to prepare it is often a significant one, and it will make a lot more sense and it will motivate you if you consider it to be a long-term investment. For example, this could be the start of you maintaining a story bank over the long run here, right? Next misconception I want to talk about here: during your interviews and the final interviewing rounds in particular, everyone will be all smiles and excited to meet and engage in a conversation with you. They will be supportive of you during the entire interview, right? So this is another misconception. In my experience, it's not actually always the case, okay? Because more often than not, at least some interviewers will prefer a more passive approach to basically just do their job, ask their questions with as little friction as possible, take their notes and move on. Okay, so they might not have a lot of skin in the game, or could be due to many other reasons. Okay, why I'm saying this? Because my goal here is to prepare you for the occasion, because for some of you, I know that it can be quite discouraging to interview this way. Okay, number 3, another misconception which used to gain some steam during the hiring sprees of recent years is that you'll just have to be good enough and not to do any monumental mistakes maybe, and you'll most likely get a job offer. Okay, so in my experience, the vast majority of cases, you must have something interesting for them. Okay, something to differentiate yourself from other candidates. And I could maybe, to give you a couple of examples here from my training and coaching. For instance, someone was able to produce 60 stories in 2 days. Okay, they were written and shared with me on my training platform in full. Okay, and then to revise them, it took them another 2 or 3 days. Okay, so compare this to most people struggling to come up with stories, let alone to revise them or to share them with me. Okay, so speaking about my training program here. Or another example, someone else went through my on-site training program, a 6-hour-long training program, oftentimes repetitive and outright boring, I must admit, not once but twice. So they even asked me questions and provided me with constructive feedback on my own training program. Okay, so this is again in a context where most people struggle to go through my on-site training program in full once. Okay, and I could give you maybe another quick example as a coach. I used to work with someone daily for 2 weeks. From before their phone screen all the way to the on-site. This is to compare it with someone for whom a coaching assignment was, they were just thinking to maybe apply in some not too distant future for a new role, since they were particularly bored by their current job. Okay, so objectives here. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that these companies aren't desperately looking to hire you, and ideally, if they could, they would only hire the top 0.5%. But the reason they cannot do it is because usually those people are both hard to find and don't work well in teams with similar top 0.5% of candidates. Okay. Next one, salary negotiation. Okay, so in case you're wondering which candidates received the best job offers, that's overwhelmingly the ones who interview and brand themselves as being the best. Okay, and that's long before receiving a job offer. Okay, so the offer becomes more interesting to the extent you are an interesting candidate. And quick note here: Oftentimes, the most interested people around negotiating a better offer are the ones who aren't even close to receiving one. Okay, because truth be said, it can be quite entertaining and relaxing to project yourself in that situation, right? Next one, short notice interviews can be because you are an exciting candidate, but it's not often they'll be desperately looking to hire you. All right. So, in my experience, the scenario of a short notice interview, often for senior roles, if they could simply need some extra options to one they already prefer. Okay. Often, for example, an internal candidate here. Okay. And last but not least, there are still people who think behavioral interviews aren't for any role. And in fact, what happens here, the behavioral interview is replacing the older general and introductory questions. And this is because it's just better to start with a behavioral question. For example, tell me about a challenge you've been through recently, and then gradually dive deeper into maybe technicalities and details, for example. Right, so these were my top tips here. I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.